just ideas, but they also require action to actually become something. And then we don't need to try and please people whose opinions do not matter. And then one quote that I really took away from his was strive for progress and not perfection. And then there was one story that really resonated with us from Juan, and that was the story of Pepe. Juan was on a vacation to somewhere where he went horseback riding, and all of his family got regular horses and he got a pony to ride. So they were on this trail, and Juan came upon a snake in the pathway with his pony, and Pepe, his pony, immediately stopped and didn't do anything and stood his ground to the snake and waited. And then the snake just slithered away, not caring about the animal that was 10 times bigger than him. So we learned that to be like Pepe and stand our ground in conflict instead of backing down.
Hello, my name is Carly Allen. I'm a senior at Algona High School, and I'm also the treasurer of the Algona FFA. So me and Paige had the privilege to walk across the National FFA stage to receive the National Chapter Award. It is designed to recognize FFA chapters that are actively implement the missions and strategies of the organization. In order to qualify for a state or national award, your chapter must complete at least 15 activities, one for each of the 5 quality standards in each of the 3 divisions. Additionally, the chapter must meet the minimum requirements as outlined in the National Quality Chapter Standards. Chapters are rewarded for providing educational experiences for the entire membership. Chapters that receive a gold rating by their state FFA associations are eligible to compete for the National FFA 3-star, 2-star, and 1-star ratings. We received the 2-star rating this year.
Hello, my name is Diedrich Schneiders. I'm in 9th grade, and we went to the rodeo. There were 2 teams, the Team Dodge that were blue shirt riders and Team Renegade that were red shirt riders. The clown was entertaining as well as his role to keep the riders safe, and the 3 stuff we watched were saddle bronc, barback, and bull riding. Top rider from each team competed against each other in the final round. We were on the Team Dodge, and at the end, our riders won the rodeo.
Hello, my name is Tucker Brunsvold. In my workshop, Know Your Worth and Getting to Where You Want to Go, we learned how to communicate to new people. In getting to where you want to go, we learned how to write a resume and get a new job using the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. In Know Your Worth, we learned how to talk to new people without being scared, because the person you are talking to is probably just about as scared as you. These are some of the things I have learned in the workshops from FFA Convention.
I'm Hannah Perez. I'm a freshman here at Algona High. And one of the workshops I went to was the U.S. Army Veterinarian Camp career. And the veterinarian program all started with the Revolutionary War. And in World War I, the Army animals expanded to dogs, horses, camels, pigeons, dolphins, and more. So the veterans, they normally do just preventative and routine care, emergency trauma care, kennel inspections, feral animal control, and rabies control. And the dolphins actually detect underwater bombs and foreign divers in our water. And being a veteran in the Army has many bonuses, such as full medical and dental plan and care, low-cost life insurance, a retirement plan, 30 days of paid vacation, and more.
Hi, I'm Melissa Engel, and I went to a workshop called Leadership is Influence. First, we watched a social experiment video where a guy was wearing a uniform and he asked people to help him, and 9 out of the 10 people complied, but when he changed into street clothes, everyone walked right on by. So that shows that appearing confident or authoritative makes a better chance for your audience to listen to you. We also learned 5 roles in influence. At the bottom, they put it in a pyramid. At the bottom is the authoritarian. a person who takes control and enforces obedience. The friend, the person to include you into the conversation. Next is the coach, the encouraging person to guide you. The mentor, to teach and guide you toward your strengths. And the Jedi, you want to mirror their confidence, and they are the most influential. We also learn 2 types of influence, which transactional influence, it's like a you do something for me, I do something for you kind of situation, and that's it. And a transformational influence is like you're a family and you support each other.
Okay, so FFA members had the chance to tour the Career and College Fair. So it's basically like 4 of our high school gyms, and it's packed full with different colleges and businesses, just trying to get more people to learn about what they have to offer there. I was able to talk to many different colleges and see what programs they had to offer, as well as meet with like Case IH and other like right into workplace experiences as well.
So you can see that we're missing a few students tonight due to illness and other things. They weren't able to be here. But while we're there, we keep them very engaged, not only with agriculture, but also with career and college readiness. We took 5 freshmen, and 4 of them were here tonight. So it's not easy to do what they just did, especially talking in front of people that they don't know well. So we work on those employability skills every day in class. Next year, the convention's going to be a week earlier. It's going to be back on schedule again. It'll be the 23rd to the 26th back in Indianapolis. In fact, it'll be there through 2031. So it's going to be there for a bit. We do appreciate you allowing us to go to convention, allowing us to take time away from the classroom. I think the things that they pick up on these trips are just as valuable in different ways. Seeing them interact with other students. We had an interaction where we were between tours in Louisville, and we were kind of checking out to pay for a meal, and this older couple came up to me and she says, I just want to comment on the table of girls that you had there, students, and how well they interacted. They talked to us. We didn't know them, and when I got on the bus, I went, all right, which of you had this opportunity to talk to this couple? And Carly goes, it was me. No, Paige? Sorry, Paige, sorry. But she said they were really nice people, and they were just talking, and she started the conversation with them. So you think about it, we're in a different state, in an area that nobody knows us. Maybe it's easier, maybe it's not, but they still do the right things even when we're away from the campus here at Algona. So I just wanted to let you know that it's important that they do the right thing and have the respect and integrity regardless of what we have on and where we're at. A couple updates from the Ag Department that I'm going to share with you real quickly. In 2023, it's been a pretty busy year. We had 8 FFA Iowa degree recipients. We had a couple students at the State Leadership Conference do the freshman quiz. Jaden Spear was the runner-up in the proficiency of small animals. She was also a star in agribusiness with her Iowa degree with her SAE of dog grooming. Our farm business management team got a gold. Our team ag sales team was a silver. A poultry contest was a silver. And then our Envirothon, we were the 3rd place FFA team, about 3 points from qualifying for a national event again. So it wasn't too bad for that. Coming up, we had the Iowa State Fair and the Kossuth County Fair. Our district soils team in the fall, we won the district contest, went to state and finished 15th in the state. And then we've got some opportunities for some winter livestock judging, which and all of these CDEs or career development events, they're improving their reasoning, their critical thinking skills. And a lot of these contests are on Saturdays, so they're giving up time to do this. So I have to say that it's pretty good on their part to represent themselves and the school very well. The next slide kind of talks about, and you really can't see it well, I'll just tell you some things. We have about 98 members in the FFA chapter, whether they're in school or out of school. We keep them active in case those out-of-school members want to do their American degree. Of the 75 in-school members, we had 106 projects. We totaled 8,800 SAE hours. Now these SAEs, you might know them better as work-based learning. If that resonates a little better for you. 8,826 hours that they journaled. We did 441 contest hours this last year, 62 contest activities. Our SAE income thus far is $37,000, but the kids are actively entering their hours from the fall, getting caught up. Last year, our income was $110,000, almost $111,000. Economic input, this is going back to the community, with $71,526. The value that these kids are doing and giving back to the community with their community service and everything that they own. So it's significant what they're doing and how they're doing it. The last thing I have for you is, what questions do you have for myself or the FFA members?
I don't know if it's a question, but it's always great to hear. I know you go to Indianapolis and a lot of the same tours, but I always seem to hear something a little bit different about it that they take away.
We
Yeah,
try and find
kinda
different
nice.
trips for them, so that way they don't see the same thing. I've seen the Indianapolis Motor Speedway probably a dozen times, but
Yeah.
that's okay. For these guys to keep it fresh, next year we'll probably be touring back in the Indianapolis area, just because if there's any carryover, then it's new tours for them.
How many times have you guys been?
I've been twice. Once.
And how many total did you say you took
We
this year?
took 9 this year,
9.
so. Any other questions?
Wonderful presentation,
Yeah,
guys.
great job, guys.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. All right. We'll continue to move on then. Our next item is the consent items. You probably should have all received them in your packets. I know Lisa's put also some additional invoices in front of you. Was there any questions about the consent items? Or Joe, you have any comments?
Yeah, there's lots of great information in there. I'm gonna kind of highlight 3 reports that I think are important to closely look at each month. The first one is the monthly ending fund balances. Always valuable to review that report to see our specific accounts. For example, the insurance fund right here. In 2019, when I started, we were about 500,000 in this fund. We want to make sure we have enough in there. We have more than enough. And that helps us make decisions on our insurance on an annual basis, but we've had some great years in there that's led us to that. Our SAVE, this is our revenue bonds will come from the SAVE fund, which is the 1 cent sales tax, PEPL, which is some property funds. So just looking at those on a month-to-month basis. The second one is the revenue and expenses. So if you look at for October 22-23, our expenses were 1.6 million. They're higher now. We would expect our expenses to go up as salaries increases unless we have less staffing. But our revenues are also up. So just to compare those two things, I think is important. You'll see that our Laverne accounts are merged into these dollars. Actually, right here is what we should be looking at. In October, which changed our totals quite a bit from the totals in September. Always, we want our revenues to exceed our expenses, as they do in this total, although we know in this school year our expenses will exceed our revenues. We can predict that, and that's mostly due to our certified number, which I'll go through in my report, is higher this year, but we get that money next year. That's not a problem. In this last one, the cash in bank is a good example of why. Is that we have a strong fund balance. It's over 4.5 million right here. That's with the Laverne cash added. You can see that in comparison. Last month I talked about that balance, how it was significantly smaller from the year before, and that's just we lost ESSER dollars for the first time in 36 months. So we're very, very healthy in those reports. So those are 3 reports I think you can look at every month that help us kind of gauge our financial health and how we're doing.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we need a motion then to approve the consent items. Thanks, Andrea. Do we have a second?
Second motion.
Thanks, Tom. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent items approved. Joe, I guess we'll come back to you and go right into the superintendent's report.
Superintendent report, certified enrollment, October 1st is the date that you count students, but it's a couple-week process before you're actually certified in enrollment. So reviewing that in comparison to last year, our certified enrollment is up over 104 students. That's due to the reorganization with Laverne. That number is very, very important to us. That is the number that provides our per pupil funding for the 2024-2025 school year next year. Overall, we actually have a little over 7 fewer students in our buildings, in our classrooms, than we did the previous year, although our funding number is much, much higher. I would anticipate that our enrollment will drop the next 2 years. We'll graduate a class of 119 and 130. We won't have kindergarten numbers that are that big, so we will see an enrollment drop the next 2 years. A new line appears in certified enrollment this year that hasn't before, where the number of students who live in your district that are funded by an educational savings account. We have 146 resident students who are funded by an educational savings account and attend a private school. This year, any student enrolled in a public school, the previous year who attends non-public and whose family has a household of income of 300% of the federal poverty guidelines were eligible. Next year, that number grows to 400%. So where we have 146 this year, that will grow next year. There are no guidelines in the third year, so that 146 number will continue to grow. That's significant for us as we receive categorical funding for all of those students. Categories like TAG, TLC funding, professional development. In total, the categoricals equal about $1,200 per pupil. So $1,200 times however many kids are receiving those ESAs. This year it's 146 is new funding for us. So comparing our certified enrollment.
So how do you anticipate our enrollment changing based on the change for?
There's 5 students who attended Algona schools last year who attend Garrigan this year. So not relatively low. I wouldn't anticipate there be a lot of change.
Is there, with those educational savings accounts, it has to be an accredited school, correct? It can't be used towards
Yep,
anything else other than an accredited school.
correct. Yep.
And there's a lot of private schools that would not be accredited, like smaller.
There are, our local ones are, but there
Yep.
certainly are private schools that aren't accredited. Yeah.
But you don't anticipate it affecting our enrollment much.
You
I
know,
mean, time will tell, but.
Time will tell. Year one, this question was asked a lot last year during the legislative session. Administratively, we talked about it. We did not anticipate a large change, and we didn't see a large change.
I mean, do we see that historically between our school and Garrigan where it goes back and forth? I mean, because I've seen kids that'll be Garrigan kids that'll move towards
Yeah.
Algona just for different needs and vice versa.
But I would agree with you. I would say having 5 students who attend Garrigan this year that attended us last year, that would not be abnormal from a normal year. Same thing, with some students.
Because we could pick up 5 next year.
We could,
That,
absolutely.
it just depends.
Yeah. So time will tell, but we did not see a change, drastic change this year. Some of our certified comparisons, the resident kids attending our district, up 85, that's up over 120 over the last 3 years. The actual enrollment, this is your certified number, this is the big one, that's up 104 and up over 129 over the last 3 years. I put in red here, we have 119 seniors and 130 juniors, just to show I would anticipate this number going down the next 2 school years. Our open enrolled in went down from 154 to 119. That's about, -35 is about the number of students who we previously had open enrolled in from Laverne. So those are now resident kids. So we anticipated that number going down. Tuition in, there's none on that. Whole grade share, we had 53. We have 0 now, as those are now resident students. Our pre-K4 students attending statewide voluntary preschool, it's up 9. Mr. Sewell and I were just talking about this morning, I think we have 87 4-year-olds in our preschool program. You know, these are not, this is the funding number, not the number of students. I do believe there'll be a legislative push to fully fund preschool. I met with Representative Stone last Wednesday. That's certainly one of his initiatives for this year. Total school age students in the district, this is our actual kids, we're down. And I would anticipate that number going down the next 2 years.
Because of the large graduating class sizes.
Yes. Our preschool kindergarten numbers, they are not smaller than what we have had. We just have some areas of, juniors and seniors, second and third, where we have some bubbles of kids. And that's just what we'll always have in a rural district. Last piece I want to talk about is classified staff early retirement program. Previous month, the board passed an early retirement program for our teachers with the intentions of having that in place for 4 years. The last time we did that in 2021, we passed an early retirement program for classified staff as well. In 2021, when we did that, to be eligible for the program, a person had 25 years of full-time service in the district. The benefit that was provided was 25% of their previous year earnings plus $25 per unused sick day. We have 10 current staff members who would be eligible this year, replacing all 10 of those with an entry-level wage for their positions would have a savings of possibly about $80,000. The one-time cost of the program would be about $122,000. If the board is interested in this type of program, I would recommend a cap of 5 years. We talk a lot about the teacher shortage, which certainly impacts our ability to hire, but there's a labor shortage just in general too. So having 10 of those positions gone in a year, I think would be very, very difficult for us. So I would certainly recommend a cap in this also. I could bring back a proposal in December if the board was interested, but wanted to give you guys the opportunity to have that discussion today.
How many staff people did it say that we would, or you have 10?
10 are eligible.
Okay.
Yep.
Just this year, you're
This
saying?
year.
This year.
And we would cap it at 5 per year.
Yes. Well, that's what I would
Yeah.
recommend if you were interested.
The entry-level wage is 13, is that where we're at, or we're?
13 for an associate, 15 for maintenance, secretary. Yeah, it's probably closer to 15.
I just, in my mind, thinking, are we, what would be a higher back at that entry-level wage? Which, it's where we set it, so I understand that, but filling the roles at that entry-level wage too.
I always get confused. Classified is non-teachers.
Correct.
And this is a new, because we didn't talk about this before.
We
were not.
didn't. Teachers, we've done.
Yeah.
This would be classified non-teachers. When we did this previously, we used some qualifications of 25 years of full-time service in the district. And then, the same formula of 1% of their previous year multiplied by years of service, so it would be 25 for all of them.
So what's the change? Because when we had talked about the unclassified, is that right? Am I using?
Certified.
Certified. There was concern about this, and we decided kind of briefly that we weren't going to do it because we didn't think there'd be a cost savings.
Right.
But
Not
now,
substantial.
Yeah, and the cost savings of replacing them, would be 80,000. The one-time cost to do this would be 122,000. So nothing's changed with that. Those are not the same funds, though, I will say that.
So
That's just
it would
an
cost,
dollar-
it would cost us $42,000 to do this program?
Yes. Although it's not the same funds, that's just a dollar for dollar comparison. And that's because we would pay the benefit, the $122,000.
Out of management.
Out of management. This would be a general funds savings.
When it comes down to this, is like a thank you for years of service.
Yeah, we pay into IPERS
Yeah.
for all of our employees at 9.5%. 9.44%. So the district is always contributing towards the retirement of our employees. Then the employees also have a contribution of around 6%. So people who leave here, whether we have a program in place or not, have a retirement benefit that the district contributes to. This would be in addition to that.
And when we offered early retirement last time, this is what we did.
This is what we did.
This is the,
And the thought process back then was, I agree, I mean, the reason why we do it for the teachers, right, is for our budget.
yeah,
It's a
considerable
cost savings.
yeah.
And when we did it the last time for the classified staff, it was around kind of that, thank you for your service of 25 in your commitment to the district. I mean, I think we gotta look at this too of the longevity, potentially. Is this something that we want to think about and continue to do, or say?
I think Andrea brings up if you wanted to consider, these are people who have classified people who've worked in the district for 25 years, a very long time, very long time. And we are very appreciative of those people. There's people on the list who are at 40, a number of them in the 30s. So these are people who have committed themselves to the district.
We are not paying health insurance.
No, not as part of this. And we didn't before.
I remember one of the last times we talked about this, part of the conversation was, instead of rewarding them when they retire, let's try to increase their wages so that, hey, thanks. And my concern is that that's getting harder and harder to do with the state funding not being where I feel it should be, and stuff. And so I'm in favor of this. And one thing, the only downside I see in something like this is we do it here, we do it a few years later, we might do it a few whatever, and it kind of, and I'm using the word forces out, and I don't really like that word, but people think, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this, and they maybe retire before they're ready to retire. I can think we have one special ed teacher who took advantage of the early retirement a few years back, and she's back in the classroom now. She just wasn't ready to retire, but hey, it's a great opportunity, I'm going to take advantage of it. What, is there downside to something? That this is just something that we have in place continually so that, when somebody reaches that 25 years or when they're ready to retire, because I think of some of the people, I don't know for sure, but some of the people I think could be eligible for this. I mean, I'd hate to lose a couple, three of those all at the same time.
Yeah.
I think primarily, the custodial staff, and if we lose a couple of those at the same time, it might be,
Yeah.
I don't know. So an idea I had, I just wanted to throw it out there about just kind of.
I think a couple of points, Todd, and I think you're exactly right. First of all, we increased both our food service and our associates' wages during the school year, and then negotiated another one. So two raises in a year for those people, and that was part of us trying to work on those numbers and work on those salaries. So we have, the board has done that, as you mentioned. Second thing, this benefit is different than when we offered insurance for the teachers. There's no insurance option here, so it would be difficult for many people to take advantage of this prior to the age of 65, unless they had another option for health insurance or just wanted to pay into ours. So I don't that example, and we've had that, you gave an example of a teacher who retires early because the insurance benefit's too good not to take. This doesn't have that. So I think in many cases of our employees, they would probably wait closer to 65. Also, Lisa and I are working on some of this. Being older than 65, you are not eligible for an early retirement program by Iowa code. So that's something to consider as well. Because you're no longer early.
Right, I didn't realize that.
I'm in favor of rewarding people for their service, but I don't want to also get to setting a precedent where every time that we come, we are expected to have a program for everyone. Because we might be in a situation where financially or is it in our best option to do these programs. So I'd be in favor of tabling it or thinking about it some more to quite understand.
Yeah, I mean, we're not voting, but I have the same feelings as Jay. I don't know. I think it's going to take a little while to process. I'd like to talk just a little bit more about it, but yeah, what is it? Certified staff, we do that because it saves it. We have to do it.
Yes.
And it's not a matter of,
It's financial.
it's a financial decision purely. And to do this every time we do something like that in the future, 5 years down the road for the classified staff is a.
But I also want to award, I also want to award employees or encourage employees to stay here in longevity when they can also go get a job at Pharmacists Mutual or any of these places and make substantially more.
So like the management fund, so I mean, yes, it's saving $80,000 out of general fund, which pays salaries, and you can do anything with general fund money. But it's costing us out of the management fund. Management fund is also what we use for the early retirement for the teachers or the certified staff. So, I mean, it's affecting potentially that down the road too. What else do we pay out of management fund?
Property insurance,
Property insurance, which
all
is
that liability insurance, workman's
close
comp.
to $500,000.
Yeah, I mean, do we always have a surplus in management?
No.
Unless we levy, unless we.
Yeah, you
You
levy
know, it's
taxes.
something we levy, our management, this is where it's at currently, but, we're spending out of it. We,
So at the end of the day, I mean, it's tax.
it is,
Payer-
we
payer
levy
money.
$1.3 million on management this year, which is a big number, but that was the anticipation of the early retirement.
Well, I know why we do the teachers so early, because obviously we want to hire early as possible.
Yeah.
But the ones that we hire there are looking for jobs starting next year a lot of times, where here, I don't think there's a harm in waiting and tabling it for a month, because we're not going to be able to hire somebody now and say, okay, well, you're not going to start till next August.
Right.
So we still have time to make.
We would have a deadline. You have to use management to pay early retirement. The application has to be approved before April 1st.
Okay.
So we would probably need it approved to give them, I think by law, we have to give them 55 days to make a decision. So probably January, we would have to approve to give them enough days to make a decision to be accepted before April 1st.
Do you need a motion? I would motion to.
No
we don't-
motion,
motion,
just a
just
discussion. And we can leave it right where it is right now, and Rodney can talk to me about if we want it as an agenda item in December, or if we're more comfortable learning more and waiting until January.
That's what I was going to motion.
Yeah, I think we have to continue to talk about it, even if we're going to motion or do something in January or
Okay.
whatever. I think it's something to bring back to revisit a little bit. Is 5 too many? Is 3 enough? I mean, I don't know what the labor shortage, but all that can be thought about a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
The projections you guys have built out have got the teachers, right, modeled out through 2018. Can we model this out?
Yeah, I could put this in the forecast tool also.
That's a good idea.
You know, I could subtract those 10 out over whatever, 4 years, and then, you know, see what that does.
And I don't know, just like we talked about the teachers too, right? And I get your point with Todd's of, it's not necessarily as much of a timing thing maybe, but also, you know, if we've got, it sounds like we've got a handful on the custodial side, and do we have other people, you know, where it's like, if we did lose 3, 4, 5 people in this one area, gosh, that would be a kind of a hardship. So anyway, I mean, maybe something to think about as
Yeah.
well as we look.
By department.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
All right, good discussion. Any more for current time? All right, then we'll move on to administrative reports. Joe, you didn't have any more, right?
No,
Yours?
that's-
Okay. Sorry about that. Administrative report, we have elementary admin here, Mrs. Schucher and Mr. Sudol, to talk about the importance of a content-rich curriculum.
All right, so we're here to talk about the importance of content-rich curriculum. We are in our second year of our core knowledge, language, arts curriculum, which we feel has a deep, content-rich curriculum.
And they would know that acronym, because they've approved that, so CKLA.
Yes.
What we approved a few years ago as our new language arts curriculum, and Mr. Sudol used that acronym correctly there, which is awesome. I don't know if I would have.
Yeah, all right, the next slide there. So the simple VO reading has the formula up there, word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. So word recognition includes phonological awareness, phonics, how to blend sounds to read words, decoding. These things are all explicitly taught in our CKLA curriculum, and we'll talk about the time frame later on when we do that and how long we do that. Language comprehension has background knowledge, includes vocabulary, language structural, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. Those two things, I think the most important thing to remember up there is that multiplication symbol. 1 times 1 equals 1, which is a reading comprehension. Like 0.5 of word recognition times 1 of language comprehension does not equal 1. So I think that's the most important thing to remember when we talk about reading comprehension today.
Okay, so I'd like you just to read this in your head to yourself. Little reading practice tonight. You can give me a thumbs up in front of your chest when you're finished, like we do with our students. Okay.
You having second graders read that?
What's that?
Are you having second graders read that?
Mr. Carter, will you flip to the next one?
We'll tell you the reading
Yeah.
level later.
Will you read this one to yourself? All right. So between the two, which one, anyone want to tell me what the second one was about? This one that we have up right now, what's it about? A baseball game. Can you kind of like see it happening? The batter hits, but it gets on base, kind of. How about the first paragraph? Does anyone know what was happening in that first paragraph?
Something with pirates.
What's that?
Pirates.
Oh. This is actually from a British newspaper about the game of cricket. And my only hint would have been the ninth wicket. Some people maybe played cricket in PE, maybe, or if you've watched a cricket match, but it's not very familiar to us. We don't have a lot of knowledge about the game of cricket, where the game of baseball is more familiar to us. So when we read that, we could understand or visualize what had happened. So on this slide here, researchers have done, it's an important, they often refer to it as the baseball study. They had 4 different types of readers read the same article about baseball. Kids who knew about baseball who were strong readers, kids who knew about baseball who were weak readers, kids who didn't know about baseball who were strong readers, and kids who didn't know about baseball and weren't great readers. And you can see that the kids who knew a lot about baseball and were strong readers did the best. And the kids that knew a lot about baseball but weren't the best readers did the second best. So having knowledge about a topic does help. So the researchers gave them all the same article and then asked them comprehension questions. And those students who knew about baseball but maybe weren't the best readers still performed better than other students who were stronger readers than they were because they had knowledge about the topic. And I think this first study maybe would have been in the 80s or something, I can't remember for sure, but they found the same results so many times they basically stopped researching on the topic because there's no point in doing it anymore because it's just a fact that if you know something more about it, you're more likely to understand when you read about it.
Which talks about really in this next slide why knowledge is so important. Studies have consistently shown with the greater amount of background knowledge, the stronger reading comprehension you have. So then a child with lower reading skill can partially compensate having a higher degree of background knowledge.
So in CKLA, what we do right now, kindergarten through second grade have 1 hour of skills. That'd be that word recognition part of the formula where they learn to know letter sounds and phonemic awareness and blend letters to make words and all of that. And then they have 1 hour of knowledge, and this is where they learn about different topics in just about all different things. I just taught a third grade lesson, and I was like, oh gosh, I remember learning this one time about our brain and about the cerebrum and cerebellum and medulla and the different parts of the brain. Today, in a lesson I observed, they were learning about all the body systems and how they are interconnected was one of their vocabulary words, and how a swimmer, for example, the kids had to find out what parts of their body systems would they be using that they learned about. The skeletal system, the muscular system, and the nervous system, and so the kids had to explain that. So that's some of the things they learn in knowledge, and we'll talk more about that. Third grade, they don't have skills and knowledge separated as much. There's different parts of the lessons that work on word recognition and on the language comprehension pieces with the vocabulary and all that. And then in fourth grade, it goes down to 90 minutes of that combined. It's not two separate, distinct times. It's all just kind of at one time. But all grades incorporate both parts of that simple view of reading formula.
As we talked about, the read alouds during our knowledge time focuses on the oral language development, the vocabulary, the questions that's asked during that, the discussions they have during that as well too. I think the most important thing to know about it too is, we want to recall that memory from that knowledge. So a lot of our topics build upon each other. So for example, in kindergarten, they're talking about the 5 senses. In first grade, they learn about body parts of the systems. And then when they get to second and third grade, goes into a deeper dive on those systems with that. So on the next slide there, as you see, this is kind of a breakdown of all of them, K through 8, of how they all, it's kind of hard to read from back here anyway. But it shows how they interconnect together and how knowledge builds upon knowledge to help them develop that deeper understanding.
And when the ELA leads met a month or so ago, it was interesting to hear, we have a teacher from each grade level, and they were talking about, oh, well, my kids learn this and this and this, and how, there may be some basic systems, and then all of a sudden in first grade they're learning how many bones are in the body, and it just gets deeper and deeper. And so our knowledge keeps building, and we keep thinking that each year the kids have this, they'll know more about it when the teacher brings it up and talks about this. The kids will be like, oh yeah, well, we learned about that in first grade or whatever. And some of our teachers even made connections to their kids in middle school and high school of the same topics that they may be learning about in biology or whatever.
And it just helps them recall it from their working memory too, as you keep repeating it, you're going over it and going deeper into it year after year.
And we created a short video. This also came from our ELA lead meeting when the teachers were talking about and they were also talking about, they'd be out to eat with grandparents or whatever, and the kids were talking about, oh my gosh, I learned this and this and this at school today. And so we wanted to share some of the things our kids have learned in their knowledge class.
Helen Keller and Ray Charles.
Can you tell us something about one of them?
Ray Charles was blind. I still sang.
When did he become blind? Do you remember?
When he was 6.
Why?
And because he got an eye disease. And she got an eye disease, and she got her ears. She couldn't hear, and she could barely even talk.
Oh, what's that called when a person can't hear?
Deaf.
So what is
It took 20 years to make 100,000 people to build. And it took 2.3 of the things to build it. The very top is gold, so you can make the sun god happy.
How tall was it?
It was 450 feet.
Who was it built for?
It was built for the ruler Khufu. He thought it was so powerful. He wanted the biggest and largest pyramid he could get.
So I have a couple questions I want to ask you, okay? The first one is, how were Sparta and Athens different?
Sparta had a really hard life, and you would once you turned 7, you would go to war. And in Athens, it was a happy, healthy place where you can almost do all of these things you can't do in Sparta.
Can you tell me about the trees in Athens?
Trees where you can do a bunch of things with them. Like you can turn them into the stuff that's good for your skin. And you can take the wood and carve stuff in it, and it will just grow, and the tree will grow back the next year.
All right. Tell me about the Greek god or goddesses you've learned about.
Zeus, he was the king of all the gods and goddesses, and the god of lightning.
Predators?
Yeah.
You guys have learned about a lot of cool different animals.
Yeah, it's a very... and we learned about Jane Goodall.
Okay, what about Jane Goodall?
She dedicated her whole life to study chimpanzees, and when she found out that they were endangered because people kept cutting down their trees, she tried to do something. And some of them would be playful, some of them would be mean too.
All right, we're going to switch to Unit 2. Unit 2, you've been learning about medieval times, right? Tell me one thing, Matthias, tell me one thing you've learned in Unit 2.
The King Henry III was 9 years old when he was first king.
I figured out that there were some nicknames. So Richard I was called Lionhearted. William II, the first I forgot, was called the Conqueror, and that's all I remember. And for the Henry II, he got married to a queen, the Queen of France, and she was from a very high quality of nobles.
So, would you rather be a serf or a noble person or a king? Why?
I'd rather be a king, because serfs had to do, they didn't get to learn, anything. But, kings and queens got to learn how to read and write and play musical instruments.
So, just to put it simply, the more you know about a topic, so we don't have the second graders reading about cricket, I just wanted to have you guys read about that, but the more you know about a topic, the easier it is to read a text, to understand and retain information. So as we build our knowledge block, we just think that we're going to have students they're going to have a lot of information about a variety of topics, which will hopefully help them read and comprehend things throughout their whole life.
So when they're talking about Athens and Sparta, that's not in social studies. That's in
You notice, when you look at the one chart, that graphic organized in there's a lot of science and reading involved in that, like the body systems for science. And then I think it starts off with the colonial towns with kindergarten, it builds up then all the way through. So I think a lot of that is involved included in our CKLA knowledge portions.
Then are the science and social studies curriculum tied into this too to reinforce, or is that completely separate?
Right now, it's separate.
Separate right now.
Yeah. Like in 4th grade, they're learning about, they're finishing a poetry unit in CKLA, and they're learning about energy in science, so they aren't completely connected. But we're hoping that, like the animal classification unit in 3rd grade, then they do a science unit on animals later down the road, though.
Because it reminds me, 50 years ago when I was in college, and thematic units was a big thing, just kind of immerse in a topic and do all your,
They learn a lot, and they remember a lot of all those things that they learn. It's pretty amazing.
I learned about the inner ear the other night.
Yes.
A diagram.
And that's one thing we want to do, is to find a good way for families to talk to their students about, like, what, like, tell me something you learned today, and then if they tell you the 3 parts of the ear or something like that, more than just like, how was school today or whatever, because I think sometimes they can go home and talk about Ray Charles for 10 minutes, and it's like a little kindergartner, or telling about Jane Goodall, things like that, that as a parent you may not know to ask those questions. So we want to, and we send home like unit overview letters or whatever that kind of tells what they're learning about, but I think sometimes that's a challenge for parents, and the kids have a lot to tell if you kind of ask them the right questions.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll continue on then with, what's our next? Old business, second reading of board policies.
So this is the second reading. We reviewed these in October as well. The district does not have policy 4058, which is the licensed employee evaluation. We do have legal requirements as part of what's in 4058, but we also need this as a board policy. So we want to recommend this, or adopt the IASB recommended policy to match what we have in our procedures and collective bargaining agreement. 4082, licensed employee publication, just right there, or creation of material. 4083, licensed employee tutoring are also being reviewed. What we have currently matches the IASB recommendations. So this is the second reading, so we will need a motion on this today.
I feel that they're beneficial policies, and I'll make a motion to approve them.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thanks, Andrea. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Second reading approved. All right, new business, looking at first reading of a policy.
First reading, so there, there's more in this November, there we go, November fall policy updates. These are all updates that are from the IASB primer update. The first change is in policy 4011, equal opportunity, equal employment opportunity. It's an update to the paragraph involving background checks. It also updates the equal employment opportunity address and contact, both which are required by law to be part of the policy. Second change is in 5031 student conduct, 50301 R1 student conduct. We don't have R1, so this needs to be adopted. It's a new addition. It includes probation, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, and suspension of a special education student. Again, it does reflect practice, just not something that we have in our policy that needs to be. And then the final piece is model policy for discipline 50308 R1. So this was, if you remember, and there's a link to it in general. When we approved the handbooks, I talked about we would need to make an amendment to our handbooks. And that's because there was legislation that was passed last legislative session that said every district had to have this type of policy, discipline policy, and the Department of Ed would offer a model of that. And we just received that model, and then we went through it as an administrative team and this is what we have come up. So in blue are the parts that you have to have in your policy. You have to have this defined threat of violence, and then this is the definition they gave us. That you have to have this defined incident of violence, defined injury, defined property damage, and defined assault. And then what the legislative piece is that there has to be an escalated response. And it has to be by grade level, so it's pre-K 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and high school. These are minimums, because you'll see lots of may. So a kindergarten student has a behavior incident. These are minimums that we would contact the parent or guardian. That we may ask for a conference with that parent or guardian, and so on. So it just it grows from the first level to the second level to the third level. And that is what had to be part of the policy. I do believe this policy reflects our practice. This is what our administrators do at all levels, but it now has to be part of our board policy, and it has to be part of all of our handbooks. This is the first reading of this, so there's nothing to do with this tonight. Just like the other first readings, but we can bring it back and approve it in December.
All right, any questions? Okay, please review those and we'll bring it back and look at it in December. Approved sharing agreements with girls wrestling.
We've had 3 schools, Bishop Garrigan, North Union, North Iowa, inquire about sharing girls wrestling. We had sharing agreements with both North Union and North Iowa last year with kids who participated for us. Bishop Garrigan is the addition. Currently, there are not any classifications in high school wrestling. That's always something to consider in a sharing agreement. Will sharing change our class? But there aren't classifications currently in high school girls wrestling. So I would recommend $200 a wrestler, and then they provide their transportation to Algona High School. That $200, that is what our agreement was last year with North Iowa and North Union as well.
How does this affect, so I get it's important to share, but I'm not a huge fan of sharing when it takes away opportunities from our girls.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of schools that don't have full teams like we do. We have the luxury of having a very big team right now, and I've been at matches where not every girl's getting to wrestle.
Yeah.
So now we're bringing in kids from other schools that our girls aren't getting to wrestle. So, I mean,
I think, Corinne, I think that's a really good point to bring up. We want, we want to help other districts and have experiences that are good for their kids and ours. I think
but not at the cost of our kids.
When our students lose an opportunity, it's something to consider. Our girls wrestling team last year, first year of a sanctioned girls wrestling team, we wouldn't have had a full lineup without, and didn't have a full lineup even with some kids from North Union and North Iowa. I don't know about our lineup this year, but there's a lot of kids. We have 20-some girls for 14 spots, so I'm sure there's some competition for some of these spots.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yep.
So I'm hesitant because I don't know, but I just don't, I don't know. I mean, I get it.
I definitely see the benefit for those schools. What's the benefit for Algona schools?
Bigger team, camaraderie, full lineup, it's.
A full lineup if you weren't able to have one.
Those girls have the opportunity, if they chose to earlier, open enroll in to wrestle for district, or no?
Yeah, there's no deadlines for open enrollment. There is still the 90 days of non-varsity competition.
Okay. Can't that be waived in both districts?
It can be, yes, it can be.
Does this increase our classification?
In girls wrestling, currently there is not classification, so it doesn't.
All right. I was always told by wrestling coaches that they could have more kids in the practice room, it gave more kids a chance to wrestle off against other kids, and not a 110-pounder versus a 170-pounder in the room. So You know, more kids has an advantage too for making our kids stronger.
This is something that, we started to have this discussion last year, I think, discussing some sharing agreements, and I went to Mr. Jacobson and to our head wrestling coaches, and all three of them certainly would be in favor of these agreements. And I think that certainly is a factor in that, Tom. More kids, the room is better. The competition is better, the practice is better.
That's good to know, too.
Yeah. I just think it needs to be looked at as the program grows. Just because we do it one year doesn't mean that we need to do it every year. They can't count on it because it's just.
Do we do it in boys?
We do it in boys with, there's Garrigan kids that
Yeah, we
come
have a
over.
sharing agreement with Garrigan also.
And it's, it hasn't been a huge deal, but I think it is going to affect. I mean, I'll be honest, Algona's the public school. Like, if you're here, you're here, and so like, if you start to have, competition is good and that, but, I mean, it's say you start to have 4 or 5 Garrigan kids that are in the starting lineup for the varsity, and then you have 2 Algona kids behind them, that have worked and do it. It's just, there's not a spot for them. Is that fair to the Algona kids? I don't know.
Yeah, when I talked to our wrestling coaches about this previously, one of the points they mentioned was in our youth programs, there's just one youth program, no matter what school you go to. So in our wrestling coaches' eyes, they're all coming through that youth program, and they're all in our high school program, again, regardless of what high school, which was a good perspective to get from them. That's how they look at it. But I think you're right, and I think it is certainly valuable to look at on a year-to-year basis.
If you want to be here in Algona, be here in Algona. So,
We don't get to pick and choose.
what's that?
Don't necessarily get to pick and choose what sports we're going to participate with, which school.
Yeah. So,
Like I said, I think it's good to monitor every year. Maybe we're still young and are, starting enough with the girls wrestling that it's still valuable to do it. But let's definitely keep an eye on it, or listen to our coaches and see where we are. So I guess first we need a motion then if we want to move forward to approve these sharing agreements.
I mean, I'll make a motion. I think you trust the coaches, but I think at the end of the day, I think we need to revisit it each year and do what's best for the Algona kids in our district. So if we look at the program and we have 3 Algona girls that are not getting to participate and get matches, I mean, I'm not even talking about varsity level in competition. I mean, there's just not sometimes enough matches. I mean, kids are going to meets and they don't get to wrestle. They don't get to participate at all because there's, other kids. That's what I'm worried about. So I don't know enough about it, but I think it needs to be talked about quite a bit in the future as we look at these agreements as things grow, boys and girls, and any sport that we do. So
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Todd. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved for the sharing agreements. Teacher associate substitute rates.
I would propose increasing the teacher associate substitute rate. It previously was $10.40, which was lower than what our hiring rate was. And if you remember, we increased our hiring rate during the school year last year to 13. So I would make a proposal to increase the teacher associate sub rate to $11.15, or you could consider raising it to 13, which is what our hiring rate is for teacher associates. I think, 10.40 is too low, 11.15 is too low. These are difficult positions to get. It's difficult to get people to sub for teacher associates or teachers. And anything we can do to make that situation easier, I think, is valuable for our kids.
Surprised we even have teachers associates and subs.
I think the great people that we have that do it, They like to be around our kids, and they'd like to help out our kids, and I think we're lucky to have them, and
They just
thankful.
feel like they'd be working somewhere else, or, you know, and hard to find people just that aren't working and available to sub like that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and you look at what is available for $11, $15, or $13 an hour in the community and that kind of stuff, and you can only imagine some of the challenges in getting these folks in and then what, you know, what they have to contend with. So if I'm reading this right, Joe, you would recommend going as high as 13 at this point? All right, I'd make a motion to change our teacher associate substitute rate to $13 an hour.
I'll second that.
and this would begin immediately, I mean, or?
Yeah.
That, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to raise the teacher associate sub rate to 13 an hour. Any further discussion?
Any idea how much this costs total for the district? Small,
Yeah.
less than 10,000 a year?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, and we're looking at, you're basically, you know, not the full 13, we're looking at about 250 increase. You know, we're already paying 1040.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, just.
Yeah. So. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none then, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries to raise the rate to 13 an hour. Okay, the next ones, we're going to be talking a little bit about resolutions, and you'll see in your packet also that there are some green.
Yeah.
The motions will need to, once we discuss them, will need to be read that way. And then we also will have roll calls with each one.
So there's 3 resolutions, which we'll all do separately. These all involve the field house project. They're resolutions for the 1997, $50,000 of school infrastructure sales, service, and use of tax revenue. So the first resolution is appointing UMB Bank of Des Moines as the paying agent between the district and Iowa State Bank. The resolution, as Rodney said, is there in green to approve UMB as the paying agent between the two.
I make a motion to approve the resolution appointing paying agent, bond register, and transfer agent agreement, and authorizing the execution of the same. I have no idea what I just said.
So was that like the cricket thing we read?
I feel a little bit like that.
Thank you. We do have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Todd. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lisa will do a roll call for us.
Davis?
Yes.
Limbaugh?
Yes.
Solaji?
Yes.
Nugent?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Benzie?
Yes.
So when we did these, Lisa and I were putting this stuff together, you know, I would read the same thing, Andrew, and I'm like, I gotta put this in simple words. So my words are the black ones. The green come from our lawyers.
But we gotta say the green, right?
Yeah, we gotta say the
Okay, I
green.
just wanna make sure.
So the second resolution is the approval of our tax exempt certificate. That's a simple, it's simply approving our tax exemption as a public school district.
I'll make the motion of approval of the tax exemption certificate.
Thanks, Jay. Do we have a second?
Second motion.
Thanks, Tom. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ready for roll call then?
Davis?
Yes.
Limbaugh?
Yes.
Solaji?
Yes.
Nugent?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Benzie?
Yes.
And then our third one.
The third one is approving the use of sales tax dollars for this project. Anytime to use sales tax dollars in a project, you have to get a resolution to do that.
We're not approving the field house, anything, this is just,
That was already done.
no, but we're saying we're preparing it if we like the bids to have the funds
Yep.
available.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we do need someone to motion the resolution as written.
I do a resolution authorizing the terms of issuance and providing for and securing the payment of school infrastructure sales, services, and use.
Thanks, Tom. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Todd. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready for roll call.
Davis?
Yes.
Limbaugh?
Yes.
Solaji?
Yes.
Nugent?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Benzie?
Yes.
All right, resolution approved. All right, we're going into maybe something, the Ella Thompson.
Yeah, almost kind of a history lesson with this too. So the Thompson Scholarship Fund was established in 1955 by William Thompson of La Jolla, California. The beneficiary of the trust is Algona High School and has been since 1955. Part of the trust agreement says that the money will always be in a national bank. In 1955, that was a really big deal, right? And, we've continued to honor Mr. Thompson's will to the letter and plan to continue to. Most recently, the money has been in with Bank of America out of Chicago, which recently got out of the trust business. So Bank of America has worked with us to find the American National Bank of Texas as a replacement. So per the will of William E. Thompson of 1955, the trust agreement says that only the Algona Community School Board can approve a successor trustee. So that's what we're doing tonight. We are approving the American National Bank of Texas as now the trustee of the Thompson Fund.
Why did they want it in a national bank?
I'm sure it had to do with securing of funds. That would be, before the FDIC is what it is now.
So if we wanted it to be a local bank?
It would go against the original will of William E. Thompson.
But that was before there was FDIC.
Yep, and we've had our lawyers look at this. They recommend continuing with as it's written.
Okay.
How many $1 million is it now?
About 300.
It gives out almost $300,000 a year to our graduates. The Thompson Fund is our entirely needs-based scholarship,
Okay.
Which usually has 3 tiers to it. There could be 20 students who receive this, not more than that, probably maybe
I
almost
think
40.
it's usually more than that.
Yeah, so it's a tremendous scholarship that was established by Mr. Thompson and his wife, and a great piece that the district's able to have for the kids.
This is completely separate from the foundation.
It is completely separate from the foundation, which is why I put in there that in the original will, Algona Community Schools, 1955 would have been pre-foundation. Now it probably would be part of the foundation, but we've continued to honor as it was written in 1955.
I'll motion to approve.
Thanks, Brad. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Tom. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
I
carries.
should ask, but is there a cost for these banks to manage a trust like this?
I'm sure there's some expenses
There's gotta
to
be
it. There
some.
would be in all of our, the foundation stuff all has costs with it, expenses with it as well.
Material.
I mean, it'd just be nice for our local banks to have,
Could we put it in front of a judge to have it
Probably,
modified?
yeah.
If we wanted to?
Yeah.
I mean, if this gentleman was that generous to do this, it wouldn't be out of, I mean, he just did it the best way that he thought it did with his
Right.
lawyers at the time to
Yeah.
have secure funds, right? But now
Mhm.
if it's FDIC insured and our banks are here in town,
It'd be nice to have it here instead of
Yeah.
Texas, right?
yeah.
But,
Might have to
I mean,
split it up in a few, I don't know, in one bank, do it all or not.
Something to think.
That's up, I don't know.
Pretty hefty amount.
Yeah, I don't know.
All of our foundation stuff's in one place, right?
Okay.
It would just be something to ask. But
Yeah.
I mean, if our
Yeah.
lawyers say do it, it's not that big a deal, but
Yeah.
is there anybody from the family that's left?
I
Do we
don't
even
think
know?
we've been in contact with the family for some time. My knowledge of it came from some members of the foundation who really kind of reviewed it annually, because that's what we do. We meet with Bank of America, review how it's working and where the dollars are. That's how I learned of all that. Then I got the will this year to read it, what it actually says.
All right, open enrollment, we'll move on, finish out.
Yeah, I just skipped one there. We
just
have
have the
one
one?
open enrollment. This student has met all guidelines for approval.
Motion to approve the open enrollment.
Okay,
Second?
thank you, a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Open enroll approved. Contracts.
Contracts, we have a number of contracts. Brent Owen, Volunteer High School Girls Wrestling.
So
Brian
that's supposed to,
Morgan,
that's supposed to be high school and middle school. Is that
high
okay?
school and middle school girls wrestling.
Okay.
Brian Morgan, Volunteer High School, Middle School Boys Wrestling. Jeremy Rummel, Volunteer High School, Volunteer Middle School Boys Wrestling. Jay Bustrom, Volunteer High School Boys Wrestling. Corey Bustrom, Volunteer High School Boys Wrestling. Chad Slagle, Volunteer High School Boys Wrestling. Cole Johnson as our middle school boys wrestling coach. Adriana Posey as a middle school teacher associate. Trevor Arnold as freshman boys basketball. Blair Bradley was being reassigned for 1 year. His reassignment is now in 7th grade boys basketball for 1 year only. Cameron Rendoni, Volunteer High School boys basketball, and Paul Jorgensen as a bus driver. We had a bus driver resignation early in the school year, really before the school year started, and we've covered that route with substitutes up to this point. And Jordan Limbaugh, high school wrestling coach.
Okay.
I move to approve all the contracts.
Thanks. Todd, do we have a second?
Second?
Thanks, Andrea. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the contracts, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Contracts approved. Thank you, everyone. I think the meeting, a lot of good discussion tonight, and something for us to think about moving forward with a few of them. Need a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second? So moved. Yeah, we are adjourned.